Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. Today we're going to be showing how to add an additional parking spot on the side of your garage. Here's the beginning of the process. I've staked out the dimensions of the area we're going to do the concrete in, and it's 14 feet off of the garage, and this pad is 25 foot long. The top of the concrete for this pad is going to be about 1 inch below the existing concrete inside the garage, but it will be above the bottom of the siding. So I had about 3 inches of dirt to cut out of here. I have the string lines up at elevation, so I'm using those as a guide. And on the side of on the siding of the garage, I know the approximate location because the siding's in level, and I know it's about the second notch up from the siding, so I'm using that as a guide as well. At this end of the concrete pad, we're sloping from right to left about 1% in 14 feet. And then at the near side towards us, I'm sloping 2%. That's the cross slope. 1% is 1/8 per foot, and 2% is 1/4 inch per foot. As I was digging with the tractor, I seen a wire sticking out of the dirt. And what that was a direct burial electrical line for the old well. I've upgraded all that, and I've actually got it in a conduit now, so I don't need this wire there. So I'm just gonna pull it out of the area and cut it off, dispose of that. Now that that's out of the way, we'll resume back to grading this out. Once I get this cut about right, I'll go ahead and set the forms, double check the elevations, and then I'm going to run the plate compactor on all this, and we're ready to put concrete in. I'm using a 3000 PSI blend, which is half of the mix is going to be the 3/8 rock, and the other half will be the 3/4 minus rock. So it makes a nice mix. Easy to work, easy to push around, and it's a good hard mix. Right here along the garage, if you haven't operated a machine a lot, you wouldn't want to get that close to a building. You'd probably want to stay at least a foot out, but I get within a couple inches, you know, because that lets me do a lot less handwork the closer you can get and use the equipment. But had I touched that building, you would have definitely noticed it. It would have dented it or scratched it. It would have done something. Now that I've got all the dirt in about the right place, now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of back dragging it. In the float mechanism within the tractor, I can lock that bucket down and just smooth it on back. I got it as smooth as I could with the bucket, which I mean you could pour on that as is, but I have the plate compactor, so I'm gonna whack it down. So as the plate compactor goes over this, it's also knocking the rocks down. You can see how flat it's getting now. No rocks are protruding. Everything getting beat down nice and flat, which is good to pour on. You want a good smooth surface. Otherwise, if you get too many pieces of debris sticking up from the bottom, it could cause cracking. Had some 1x4. Typically I use 2x4s when I'm getting ready to set up a job, but I had these 1x4s extra from a previous project I was doing, so I'm just going to utilize them, and they'll hold. no problem. You just have to space your stakes a little bit closer. And it's also hard to find a good straight 1x4, but I hand picked all these at one time or another and they've remained straight. I'm bending the nails over on the inside. Here's a little filler I just kind of put together. Notice the sledgehammer behind the board, that's your backing. So when you strike that nail, you're not knocking the forms around, making every other stake loose again. So you want something behind the wood every time you start pounding on it. So the grade was pretty good. It was a little deep in this corner right here. You can kind of see the airspace under the bottom of the form. I ended up dropping a little road base in that corner and recompacting. Now it's pour day, and so I'm utilizing some wire mesh. This is 6-inch spacing on this wire mesh, and it's a 10 gauge. It's great for 4-inch concrete. If you're using big steel and 4-inch concrete, there's a good chance it could rust because there's not enough concrete on both sides of it, and if it rusts, it cracks concrete. So wire mesh is a good choice, 4-inch deep concrete. I was thinking coming on this side of the tree, get like half maybe, and then we'll go on this side of the tree. So whatever it takes to get from there to there, it's 13 feet, so it's not going to be many.
I'm here saying I sit right at a 4-inch slump.
Oh yeah, I told him, well, we can always add water when it gets here. Yeah. We'll do about a 5.5, 5 probably.
Yeah, so I was thinking like trying to get a 4-inch slump down the chute.
No, I don't want to fight it.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
I want to make it easy for you guys.
Yeah, I got a rookie with me today.
Yeah, I have no idea what that leads towards me. You want to leave it a 4 and make him spread it?
Yeah, he'd probably quit if I did that. This would be his last day. First and last day in concrete, we did that to him. So as you notice there, we got Eric today. He just showed up for the pour. He's going to help me lay this down. You may have seen him in the last video where we did the stepping stones. So now he's known as the chef. As I'm pouring this concrete out, you notice how the wire mesh is just laying on the ground. The reason for that is because I'm going to go ahead and stop the pour here in a moment, and I have a 5th wheel hook, and I'm just going to reach through the concrete, snag that wire and lift it up. There you can kind of see the hook there for a moment. Eric was pushing it through, yanking it up. There it is. What we're going to do is just kind of tap it like this. This is Eric's first time on a screed board, and it was a little bit of a struggle to begin with to get this going, but he caught on real quick. By the time we got to the end of this job, it was going pretty smoothly. So I'm pretty confident on the next one it's gonna go even better. So we established a wet screed off of the building. We have a chalk line there, but it's not very visible. But we do know where the concrete goes because of the siding has all those slats in it. We're just kind of eyeballing it for the most part. We maintain 2 inches from a slat or 1 inch, and just do that all the way down. And once we get this wet screed off of the building a couple feet out, maybe even 3 feet out, then we'll turn the screed board, and then we'll rod it the other direction right off of that wet screed. And that's our guide to make this nice and flat. Now as I'm running the chute here, you'll notice I'm lifting the wire simultaneously as I move the chute around. a little more challenging, and I'm kind of multitasking at this point, giving direction, running the chute, holding the wire, a lot of stuff going on. Once I started shoveling that concrete there, we've poured about to 1/3 of this out right now on our first drop. Now we're going to screed it out, see how accurate I was with the chute, and it turns out not very accurate because I do a lot of pumping, and it takes a little practice. I mean, you need to run that chute more than once every few months to get good on them. So initially I had this big pile up, you can see here. This is about, a 4-inch pile up there. Luckily I cut the concrete off. I mean, if I had kept going, I would have had a real disaster when I dropped that screed on there, and I would have had to drag the concrete twice as far. That's the beauty of cutting the concrete off, screeding it, and starting again. Now, as I start to run the chute again, plus I'm going to add a bunch of water to this mix. A little too stiff for my liking. Look at the board, how it's bending because of the force that we're pulling on that with, dragging that concrete back. It's arching in the middle, but that's okay as long as it stays straight on the other direction. It's not crowning. This is a 4-foot magnesium bull float. You can see the flowing of the concrete. You can see how much more flowable it is now that I've added water to it. And it's still good quality concrete. It's just going to be a little wetter, a lot easier to move around. You drop your PSI a little bit, by adding water. But in this case, it's nominal. We went from about a 4.5 inch. Now we're at about a 5.5 maybe. 12 inch is really wet. When someone says it's a 12 inch, that means when you stack it up in a cone 12 inches high, it completely collapses and disperses to 0 inches. So concrete's pretty good between 0 and 6 inch slump. I mean, that's anything over a 6, and it's probably not good unless you've got some kind of additives in there, a water reducer and stuff like that. You could still get a real flowable concrete, strong, but the slump is going to change. As we got down here to the end where we had a little more water in the concrete, how much easier this is screeding off, and it flowed to about the right level before we even had to touch it with the screed.
I got a hole right here.
I will be power troweling this too. I have a power trowel that I just got running. It took the carburetor apart. It had been setting a while, so I had to take the carburetor off the gas tank, clean the gas tank. I soaked the carburetor overnight in a solution, put it all back together, and it started right up first pull. It was beautiful. So a few days later, it's pour day, and I think that thing is going to be running beautiful because it ran so great after I put it back together. And to my surprise, and you'll see that in the video, it didn't want to start. And I let this thing get rock hard before I drug the power trowel up on here. And that's the trouble, you know, relying on a power tool sometimes can get you in trouble. Unless you've got two of them, like a backup. Or a rental place really close by, with like, you know, 20-minute round trip that close. Now we just let it set for about 30 minutes before we started bowl floating again. Now I'm going the other direction with the bowl float. As I went this other direction along the building, on the right side of the bowl float, as I got further down, I noticed it wasn't really touching the concrete. So I had a little low spot along the building, and you can see I've already thrown concrete with a shovel along the building there. Now I'm jiggling the bowl float to try to jiggle those rocks, that concrete into those low places, kind of disperse it equally. But we got it. So then once I jiggled those rocks into those low areas like so, I ran the bowl float the other way again just to see. My bowl float is straight. I mean, you'll get a lot of these bowl floats, especially 4-foot magnesium, they'll start to bow on you, you know, after a lot of use. It's just in their nature. So you always got to check your bowl float too if it's really straight, because there's times when the ends will curl up on you. In this case, it's pretty straight. And take a look at this end, same thing. It's not touching on the edge again. And I like it perfectly flat myself. But I get it flat. I mean, it's flat as a pancake now. I mean, when you see the end of this thing, when I do the pressure wash, and I have a pretty minimal slope on this thing, it was the water ran off of it beautifully. No residual water anywhere. It just kind of disappeared. Here's your walking edge, your 12-inch wide, 1/2-inch radius. Top of the form, it's pretty clean. I probably back dragged it with the edger before I started edging. Something like that. Here's what I mean about back dragging the top of your form, getting the concrete off the top. So what happens later if you don't have a clean form, it'll keep getting in the way. Those little crusty stuff, top of the form, will dry quicker than your thicker concrete, and it ends up falling in at some point in time when you're brooming, when you're troweling, when you're edging. All those crusties fall in and they just keep disturbing your work basically. So that's why I like a clean edge, a clean form. Now here's Big Blue, which I really rely on a lot. It's one pass and done, no weights needed. It's pretty heavy all by itself, and it lays it down nice and flat. Now, in some cases, you wouldn't even have to really run a Fresno. If you wanted to just hang out, you know, and kick it and wait for the time to throw a power trowel on there, you could do that. Get yourself a float pan and get on there a little early with the machine. Luckily, I went to these extra steps. I used Big Blue, then I funny troweled. I went through the whole process, fortunately, because the power trowel inevitably didn't run, and I was dancing all over the concrete with my feet and putting holes all over the place, trying to start that thing, and then I just said, oh no, this is not going to work. So I had to get rid of it. Get down on the hands and knees and just grind it. Alright, Eric, the chef, is bringing in the power trowel. And that thing, I thought, was running beautifully too, man. Spent about 2 or 3 hours working on that carb, test running it. A week later, I go to start it. This is what I get. Notice how I put the chef on the heavy end? That's the trick, man. Oh, right there, I thought I had it, man. No, and that was it. That thing's nothing but a dead weight right now, and it's in the way. So we rushed, scavenged up some sliders real quick, and got out there. So we got to knock out all the footprints, the scarring from the machine getting dragged around on there. Fortunately, this was not a very big area, so we were able to handle it. Now, if it was a big area and we were really relying on a machine, we'd have to have at least 2 working machines there, just in case one broke, you know. Eric's, this is his first time on sliders, and he picked his own trowels out of my truck, and he went with that big one. So I let him use it just to try to see what he could do with it. And it's very difficult with the big trowel when it's at this stage. So inevitably he went and got the small trowel, and now he used that big one for his leaner. And that went a lot easier for him, and it looked a lot better. And by the time I got to the end, it was pretty hard, so I had to put a little water on it here, as you could see. And that makes a big difference when you're troweling. A little water goes a long ways. You can get away with that in this kind of climate, especially. I'm in a really dry climate, so this water is gonna come out of it real quick. So at this point, Eric's catching the edges because we're caught up to the concrete. The area along the building was shaded for quite a while, so now we're home free. Matter of fact, I could only broom half of this, and then I'll have to wait, trowel the area that was in the shade again, and then continue brooming. That's inevitably what we end up doing here. Right now I'm spraying water on it because I'm going to run the broom over it. Notice how I'm stopping short with the broom. This is a nylon broom. I'm just giving it a shot. I don't really care for it. I like the horsehair personally. But so this is probably maybe the last time I used this one, really. Unless, of course, my horsehair is unavailable then, and this one is, then I'll have to use this one. But you know, let me know what you guys prefer. Do you guys like the nylon or do you like the horsehair? That'd be interesting. Kind of get a vote, you know, see what everybody thinks. Do they prefer nylon or horsehair when they're finishing the concrete? Here's the Medusa from Skill, and it's designed for cutting concrete, early entry basically. Rolls nice and straight, compact, easy to move around. It all fits in one bag. You can do wet, dry with it. I recommend it if you're doing a lot of saw cutting for your relief joints. You can wet cut your joints in with tool joints, but I like saw cuts. They're just cleaner, less dirt trapped and water and erosion. So it's the way to go for me. There's the finished product. Eventually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hang a little awning off of this, like a carport. I'll just connect it right to the building and bring out about a 12-foot canopy over it for you know, to keep the quads, a tractor, whatever I want in there, but it'll be nice and protected. All right, that about wraps up this video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. That way you'll be notified as soon as we upload the next video. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.